The big storylines here, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens and their new look offense going up against PFF Bobby, Houston Texans. DeMeco Ryans, Houston Texans. We get to see the debut of CJ Stroud, of Will Anderson, of Bobby Slowick as play caller, as DeMeco Ryans as head coach. I forgot to look this one up, but the Ravens crush teams on opening day. You know their history. They win like 44-3 and all that stuff. But Ravens favored by 10 here. What are we looking for in this game?
Yeah, big line. You're right. There's a lot of newness to this game, to both sides. Completely new offense for Baltimore, which isn't just, this happens every year throughout the NFL. Teams change offense. It's not a rare thing, but this is the first time Lamar Jackson has been in a new offense. And I think why that's interesting in particular is because Lamar had this custom-made offense tailored around his skill set, and they've basically ridden that as far as they felt it could go, and now made a change. Now, the question is, that just presents a very unique set of circumstances. A guy that's only ever existed in this one offense that was specifically built around him for the first few years of his career. Now he gets to play in a much more conventional, NFL-style offense. What does that look like? Like, where have we reached in this narrative of Lamar Jackson and NFL offenses? Was he actually being held back by the fact that they never really evolved that system or sort of tried to modify it or bring it back towards the rest of the herd? Or did he need that propping up to be as special as he's been so far?
The other thing to keep an eye on here, Ravens injuries. 3 of their best players, all questionable. Mark Andrews, the tight end. Marlon Humphrey, a corner. It looks like he might be out. He's listed as questionable. They're already talking about replacements for him. Ronnie Stanley, questionable at left tackle. So that's something absolutely to keep an eye on here. Mark Andrews has been, their top target, their go-to guy, whether Lamar was hurt or they had when Lamar is in or when they had Lamar injuries. But the receivers, the story of the Ravens offensively this year is supposed to be Odell Beckham Jr. coming in, first-round pick Zay Flowers to go with year 3 of Rashad Bateman, the former first-round pick. They should have better receivers. And again, we don't really know what this offense is going to look like. Is it going to be far fewer tight formations, right, where they've got tight ends and fullbacks and they're pulling them all over the place and they're putting Lamar in space? Are they going to spread to run? I still think they use Lamar's legs, Sam.
Yeah,
I don't think we're getting away from that.
No.
I think it's going to be more spread to run.
Yes.
But the question is, okay, the pass concepts, are those going to fit his skill set? What's that going to look like? Are there growing pains with different offenses and how you handle blitzes? Those are the types of things to look for, I think, in week 1.
They've been referencing, his college offense. Like, if you go back to what he was doing at Louisville, they were running a lot of wide formations, 11 personnel, 10 personnel, spreading teams out and letting Lamar Jackson pass from the pocket. And then his running was scrambles. It wasn't his running rather was design runs. It wasn't that he was this crazy scrambling quarterback that, he wasn't playing like Michael Vick at that point. So theoretically, we know what this should look like because we've seen him do it at the college level. Obviously, it's a different world doing it in the NFL, but I think generally in the the range of outcomes, balance of probabilities, we should expect this to help Lamar Jackson, not to drag him down or not to expose him.
If Ronnie Stanley's unable to play, Patrick McCarry, perhaps the backup there, he's played admirably across multiple positions for the Ravens over the last couple of years. But that could open up the door for the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft, Will Anderson, making his NFL debut, showed some flashes in the preseason. And we're big Will Anderson fans here. But we're just going to see what happens, as far as all the draft capital that Houston gave up. But look, I think Houston looks feisty, right? Much better roster than they've had in recent years, as we mentioned in all of our preview shows. Just a matter of CJ Stroud, how many of those rookie mistakes show up here in week 1?
Yeah, it's probably a tough defense to start out with. Remember when Baker Mayfield had his start, and it was like he was disastrous against the first, was it year 2? First couple of games in a new offense, and it was going up against Pittsburgh's defense and Baltimore's defense, and he was an absolute disaster in those games and then bounced back once he kind of got his feet under him. Baltimore, I don't think, is a particularly pleasant defense to be going up against as your first NFL start for CJ Stroud or for PFF Bobby, right? Like dialing up the offense that CJ Stroud is going to need to succeed. So that's a rough start for those guys. And it feels like, to me, this is like prime overreaction candidate. We're coming out of this game and Monday's show, like Houston have been absolutely waxed. They've gone nowhere on offense, and we're like, uh-oh, Stroud's terrible. Bobby's in over his head. Like, the whole thing's a disaster. But I feel like that's just the risk with a defense like this.
Yeah, I mean, look, rookie quarterbacks, they don't always struggle in week one. I'm going to have my doubts, I think, about Stroud and maybe Anthony Richardson right out the gate. 10 points is a lot, so where are you going with this one? 10, Ravens favored by 10.
Right. I mean, this is a classic example as well of, we're still in prior season, right? We're still holding over draft takes. We're still holding over what we thought about various things until proven otherwise. CJ Stroud has got to battle against the relative struggles he had under pressure and outside of structure in college, coupled with, the various reported sort of S2 cognition scores, all those kinds of things. There were a few things that stacked together that suggested that he's not cut out for the NFL, but working against that, you have incredible accuracy, physical tools, the fact that he did it in the Georgia game, the toughest defense he faced, and was lights out under those circumstances. So, but this is the kind of game where you're going to be looking at that, and depending on what you thought going into it, you're probably going to be swayed that way. I think ultimately the game probably ends up going that way, that this offense struggles week one, Baltimore rolls, and not only are they good value for 10 points, but they might end up, making that even worse.
I'm trying not to break down every matchup in every game, but the last one to mention here, the Texans offensive line has had an overhaul just here in the preseason. So George Fant scheduled to start at right tackle. They trade for Josh Jones, who they're going to put at guard. They trade for Kendrick Green, who they have at center because of their injuries up front. That could be an issue against the Ravens defensive front. Not because it's the Ravens, and the Ravens aren't great rushing the passer, but I do think, they can have success with their guys, Odafe Owe, Jadeveon Clowney there, Justin Madubuike on the interior.
Titus Howard to IR.
Yes.
So he's not going to be showing up, or at least the first few games.
All right, I'm taking the Ravens because, in part, because they've got those weird trends, right? They don't lose in the preseason, and they dominate week one, historically. I think that's a big part of my buying into the -10 here. Don't start laughing. What's your record this year? You're 0-0. You're 0-0, like I am. All right? We're all tied for first and last.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't mock me when I make a pick now. It's a whole new season.
I'm mocking your logic.
It's a new season.
I'm mocking your logic.
Oh,
it's
okay.
an entirely different thing.
Well, wait till I drop the, flying to the East Coast logic that we like to lean into a lot.
Yeah.
Who you taking?
Baltimore.
Oh, just because?
Because I think that their defense might make things very ugly for the Houston offense.